Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. So I'm going to be talking about my top 10 books that I read in the year 2023. Now, I was going to do 23 books, but I realized I didn't have that many favorites. Most of these are 5 stars. I wanted to have a little recommendation of books that I have fell in love with as of this past week. I haven't talked about them yet, and I feel like they're gonna be some of my favorite books when it comes to this certain genre. And honestly, I can see myself rating them 5 stars, so I just wanted to include them in case I think about them more and I'm like, wow, these books are freaking good. Like, I want to talk about them. The Losers Duet by Hartley LaRue. I recently got them this past week. I was gifted them by Larry Reads on YouTube. If you follow her, she is amazing and she book faired me. Was very intrigued when she started talking about them on her TikTok. I was like, so what is this? I was like, so maybe I'm gonna need them in my life. It is Losers Part 1 and then Losers Part 2. I would say dark romance it is. It has a lot of trigger warnings. So if you want to go into the series, there's a trigger warnings page on the front of them. I recommend looking and reading over them. I have been loving these. So this is a reverse harem. Why choose? So it's one girl, Jessica, and she was like the prom queen. She was the popular, like, sort of bully in high school. The rest of the guys, which is Vincent, Manson, Lucas, and Jason, and they were sort of the losers, which is why it's called that. And they were sort of the outcasts, the sort of nobodies that got like picked on by her. And we sort of see their high school dynamic, and also we see them in the now perspective when things are starting to progress into a romance. These are the spiciest books I have ever read. I will say there is spice in almost every chapter. There is a lot of people, so there is a lot of spice going on. And when I say I didn't mind it, I mean it. Very much character-based. These are not plot-based books. They don't have like a cohesive plot. It's basically just following these characters and seeing how they each form relationships and connections with each other. It is very deep, and you learn a lot about each character, and you learn about what they go through and how they're, you know, moving on from it and how they're healing from their trauma. I love character-based books. I don't really need a plot in books at all. If you give me characters and you have some backstory and depth to them, I will immediately love them and want to see their everyday life. And the spice is immaculate. I was reading them and I was like, wait a minute, like, calm down, like, wait, like, this is like, am I learning things about myself? Maybe I shouldn't put that on the internet, but I just did, so that the more you know. I want to read more by Hartley LaRue. Please tell me some other books that they have written because I'm so intrigued. Highly recommend it. Would give everyone in my life a heart attack if they knew I was reading this. And that's just a fun quirk about me. The next book that I want to talk about is a book that I also read recently. It is a fantasy, Powerless by Lauren Roberts. I talked about this book a lot in my November wrap up just because of how much I love this book. I think about this book every single day and I'm not even lying. Like, when people say that, I'm always like, do you really think about it every day? This one I do. It's very hard for me to want to immediately pick the book back up and reread it. Like, I'm not a rereader. This one, however, immediately wanted to start annotating because the relationship in the story and the overall world is amazing. It's like the Hunger Games. That's what it's like marketed as, because we follow Peyton and Kai and they both are put into these sort of trials, and there's elites, there's like mundanes, I think, and there's ordinaries. We find out that Peyton is an ordinary and they sort of want to eradicate ordinaries from this world because they think they're infecting the elites. Kai is an elite. He has a very strong power. It's an enemies to lovers, so Peyton and Kai do not really like each other at all. Obviously, see it starts to develop into something. And by the end of it, you are just like, I need the sequel. Like, I promise you, you will not read this book and be like, I don't need the sequel in my hands right now. Like, I can wait. No, I can't wait until July. I need the book now because the way it ended, I was like heart-wrenched. I sobbed. I was like, what is happening? What is going on? The connection between Peyton and Kai is so strong, and their banter and their overall like tension is insane. And it's just like, it's so good. I want to immediately reread it. It is one of my favorite reads of the year. I didn't preface this, but these are in no particular order. These are not like starting because I don't do that. Like, I genuinely could not put these in order because that would be too much for my brain. So these are just my top 10 reads. I didn't mention that at the beginning, but I should have. But I will say this one probably would take top 3. It's amazing. So good. Highly recommend it if you're looking for a fantasy. Go read it. We're going to talk about Daisy Hates by Jessa Hastings. Now, when I started this, I didn't know if I was going to be a Magnolia Parks girly or a Daisy Hates girly, but as we can tell, when I read this, I was like, oh my god. And I actually filmed it, I think, and I cried. I was crying because the ending of this is insane. It's criminal. It's offensive to me because What do you mean you're gonna end it like that? Like, what do you mean? My best friend and I were actually on the phone last night because she just finished this book, and she's a Magnolia Parks girly and I'm a Daisy Hates girly because I love Daisy. I feel like she's such a strong character, and Christian is like amazing to me. Like, I love him so much, and I'm excited to get back into the Magnolia Parks universe. I definitely need to start reading them because Into the Dark comes out in February, so I need to finish it by the time that comes out. When I go into these, I know it's gonna break my heart, so I'm like, oh, I don't even like, I dread going into it, but I'm excited to go into it. It's like very complicated feelings. Like, Jessa Hastings knows how to make your feelings complicated. Like, what is that? Oh, go read this. All of these are now 5 stars. We're getting into 5-star territory, so there's that. The next book is another romance, and it is a sports romance, and it is The Right Move by Liz Tomford. It is a basketball romance between Ryan and Indy, and it is best friend's brother trope. And let me tell you, it's so good. I fell in love with Ryan, as everyone does when they read this book. Like, you just immediately fall in love with him because he is so attentive to like her. He just knows things about her, like even things she casually mentions like in a conversation, he'll remember it and do it for her. What I can think of is he knows she likes iced coffee, so he'll put her coffee in the fridge to keep it cold before she wakes up. What is that? When will a man ever? When will a man ever? That's all I have to say. 5 stars, immediately fell in love with them as a couple. And also Indy's such a good character, and there was no way this book was going to be anything less than a 5-star. Immediately, if you want to make me fall in love with a man in a book, authors put acts of service and good acts of service, because that will immediately, hey, I'm foaming at the mouth. Hey, I'm falling to my knees. So that was that book. Please go read this. Oh my god. Now we're getting into territory where you've probably heard me scream about this man from the rooftops for probably, if you made a compilation, probably hours. We're now at Heartless by Elsie Silver, the second book in the Chestnut Springs series. Kate Eaton? Oh my god. How did Elsie Silver put words to page and make me feel like this? Because Kate Eaton is perfect. This is a small town romance single dad trope. It's age gap. She is his son's nanny, and he is very grumpy. He like really doesn't like to talk to anyone. He really doesn't like to smile. She's very like sassy. She's very just like quick with the banter, and the banter is great. And the Chestnut Springs series in entirety, if I was going to do a series video, that would be my favorite series that I read this year, just because of how good this series is. If you're looking for small town romance, I would highly recommend this series. Thank you, Elsie Silver, for writing Katie in, because I haven't moved on, and it changed me as a person because now I'm into single dad romances. Speaking of single dads, now I have All Roads Lead Here by Mariana Zapata. This book is not for everyone. It is an extreme slow burn. Like, the characters barely even talk to each other until you're 80% through the book. Like, and I'm not kidding. She really knows her niche of slow burn and goes with it. I don't know what it was about this book, because I've read another Mariana Zapata book, From Look Off With Love, but this one like really got me. You could tell that Rhodes, who is the male main character, really cared for Aurora, who was the female main character who ended up coming back to her hometown and living in his like garage thing. You could really tell that he just cared for her in the small ways that he did things. And I annotated this book to filth. Like, hi, what is that? Like, is it really that serious? I don't know. It kind of is for me. It's very serious. And you see the connection that she makes with Amos, who is Rhodes's son. You see that connection's very cute. Then you also, towards the end, just see how much he's actually cared for her throughout the entire book. If you are into tension and slow burn, this is the book for you, I promise. Like, you will absolutely fall to your knees for it. It's amazing. Highly recommend it. Please go read it. The next book you've also probably heard me talk about a lot, because I've talked about it in many videos, and I've also swapped this book with my best friend because we were swapping 5-star reads, and it is Darling Venom by Parker S. Huntington. I want to preface this by saying check the trigger warnings. The book deals with some very heavy topics that I would think you should be aware of if you're going to go into this just for yourself. Honestly, I wouldn't even market it as a romance. It is a romance because that's what it is. But I didn't love this book because of the romance. What happens in it is so sad and so heart-wrenching, and one thing about me is I love sad books. Slowly uncovering like a lot about what happened and sort of just like finding healing in that was so like, I loved it. This book made me sob profusely at 2 a.m. and I was like gasping for air, needing to talk about it with someone, and I couldn't because no one had read this book in my life, and I was like, what's happening? I need to talk about it because the lines of this were so heartbreaking. I still think about it. I still want to sob, and it was just so good, and I would recommend it so much. This is just me saying, please go read all of these books. That's essentially that. The next book, I don't think anyone's gonna be shocked because I rave about this series all the time, but it is The Bad Reputation Duet by Kristen and Becca Ritchie. I would honestly say this is a part of the Addicted Calloway Sisters series because You basically see these characters throughout the entire series. I would say you need to read this. Like, if you're gonna read the Addicted Callaway Sisters series, buy this. It's so amazing. So Willow Hale is a part of the family, and Garrison is sort of this like bad boy who comes from this like troubled house, and the character growth of him is amazing. Like, I absolutely loved him, and Willow is the most relatable character I think I've ever read about. Like, I think I read this and saw myself within her so much that I was like, wow, I think someone wrote a book about me. I think someone wrote a book about me. Because that's insane. Like, what do you mean? I read this, absolutely fell in love with the characters, and I do want to read the Like Us series by the same author. It is the second generation of the Addicted Callaway. I was super sad to leave this sort of universe because this was actually my like final goodbye for like a year of this series, and I just love it. Really recommend reading the Addicted Callaway Sisters series. I'll scream it from the rooftops every single second I have because it's amazing. It's very character based, really no plot in these books, all character, and I loved it. Found family up the wazoo. Then I have the Boys of Toman series. I didn't put the entire series on here because it's not this sort of video. I just put my favorite book in this series, which is Keeping 13, the second book. The emotional roller coaster I went on in this book made it so agonizing. Like, I was like bent over inconsolable. But I loved it. Like, I loved this book. Would check the trigger warnings on this one too. It deals with a very severe family life that Shannon and Joey go through. It's very sad, very, very like heart-wrenching, and makes you like literally want to sob 24/7 because of what they go through. But the way they end up finding their found family and find each other through friends, and it was a lot. I won't say too much because this is the second book, not the first one, but it does follow Joey and Shannon. I also wanted to include this book because it's a series that I absolutely love and adore. And I feel like I don't talk about this series enough for it being one of my favorite small town romance series. But I want to talk about Juniper Hill by Devney Perry. It is still one of the books that I think about when I think about this series. I just have such fond memories of me reading it. It was just so good. At the time, I fell in love with it and wanted to give it a 5 stars. But the more I think about it, it's more like a 4.5, 4.75. But that does not mean I can have it like not be on this list, because when I looked at my shelf, I was like, why do I not talk about that book more often? Because it's so good. It is a single parent trope. It follows Memphis and Knox, and Knox is an Eden who owns his own restaurant in the town, and Memphis comes from a city and she ends up living in his garage, and she is a single parent trying to deal with being a single parent. It follows their relationship. The connection that Knox made with Memphis's son was the thing that literally made me like want to cry the most, because it was just so adorable and you could tell how much he cared for them. I can't believe I don't talk about this book more. Like, I really need to start talking about this book more because it's so amazing. And I loved Memphis. I loved Knox especially. Like, he is the best man in the Eden series. Go read this series, especially for Juniper Hill. It's the second book in the series. It's amazing. For small town romance lovers, I highly recommend it. Okay, hi, this is a voice memo of me because I realized that I did not put one of my other favorite books in this video, and I feel really dumb. So I wanted to give a special mention to Say You Swear by Megan Brandy. I cannot believe I looked at my shelf and didn't pick that one up, but here we are doing a voice memo. Please go read that book as well. It's so good. It's a like sports romance kind of love triangle, but like don't take it too seriously. It's not really a love triangle. There's one person that we know she's gonna end up with. Anyways, I just wanted to talk about that because I cannot believe I didn't put it in here, and I feel stupid for not doing that. So go read that one too. Those are my top 10 books that I read in 2023, most of them being 5 stars. Love them so much. I've read 90 something books this year, and those are the ones that made the cut. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching this video. It means the absolute world to me. I hope you enjoyed, and if you did, please give it a thumbs up and comment down below if you've read some of these books or what are some of your favorite books that you read this year. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!